how to go from this to this in only 2 weeks without any CO2 or any annoying maintenance. This is very low effort, extremely high reward, and you can achieve it by letting nature do it for you. And to be completely transparent, at some point in this video, I'll show you a day-by-day progress of this aquarium while using this method. I set up this tank a while ago after a friend of mine decided he didn't want it anymore. He asked if I'd take the tank and the fish, and I agreed. The plan was to keep the tank for myself and find a new home for the fish as soon as I could. And before you say I shouldn't keep goldfish with angelfish, this was only temporary. Eventually, I found a good home for the fish, but I ended up neglecting the tank. You know, life got busy, and before I knew it, algae had completely taken over. I have no CO2 running in this setup, so I want to go over the 5 steps that I implemented in this tank so that you guys can decide if this is something that you might want to try. I mean, the results are undeniable. Let's get started with step 1. And the first thing I did was add some algae eaters. Nothing too crazy, just 5 autosynclus. This is a 75-gallon tank, so 5 autosynclus is really nothing. To top it all off, most of them were tiny, with only one fully grown, because that's all the nearby pet shop had in stock. Still, they got to work immediately. By day 2, I could already see the marks where they'd been eating. They looked so happy. I think they were having a bad time at that pet shop. If you've got a planted tank and no algae eaters, this is the first step I recommend. Start with just a few and see how they do before deciding how many more you'll need. Of course, I knew a handful of autosynclus wouldn't be enough to handle the chaos in my tank, so I moved on to step 2. If you have been watching some of my videos, you might know that a few weeks ago, I received a shipment of Riccia fluitans. Unfortunately, it came with some uninvited guests, pest snails. Now, since I don't have any plants in my 75-gallon tanks that I'm too worried about getting infested, I decided to add most of the Riccia there. Why? Well, Riccia grows like crazy, and fast-growing plants absorb lots of nutrients. Here's the deal. Algae and aquatic plants both feed on the same stuff: potassium, phosphorus, nitrogen, iron, and other trace elements. The difference is that algae are way less picky. They don't need specific conditions to thrive. But if you add plants that soak up those nutrients quickly, like Riccia, you can starve the algae out. At least that was my plan. Let the Riccia take over for a couple of weeks and see if it made a dent in the algae problem. But then something I didn't expect happened. So don't go anywhere, because step 3 is where it gets crazy. And this wasn't even a step that I was trying to take. And guys, if you find the information in this video to be valuable, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow, and it helps me to be able to continue making videos like this on a weekly basis. Step 3. Nature will always find a way to balance itself. Can you guess what happened next? Pest snails happened. Like I mentioned earlier, the Riccia was completely overrun with pest snails. Well, as soon as I added them to the 75-gallon tank, they started reproducing like crazy. Seriously, you can see the eggs everywhere. Right there, pretty much all over the place. They took over fast and began munching on the algae, which ironically made all the difference. Every day, there was less and less algae in the tank. Guys, I know these are pest snails, and they are considered to be that for a good reason. They don't need a male and female to reproduce. Each snail can do it on its own. That means they can keep reproducing forever if conditions are right. The key thing to remember here is that the reproduction rate is directly tied to the amount of food available. More food, more eggs, and those baby snails grow faster and start breeding themselves. So once the amount of algae starts to decrease, they start reproducing less. You can really see that in my 50-gallon tank. Even though it was the first to get overrun with snails, You can barely spot any now. Why? Because this tank is super clean. And hey, there's another way to get rid of them, which I'll cover in step 5. Look, I'm not saying you should intentionally add pest snails to your aquarium, not at all. What I'm saying is that nature has a way of balancing things out. Sometimes all you need to do is step back and let it happen. The next thing I did was to adjust fertilization. When I first added the Riccia to this tank, I didn't touch my fertilization routine. The plan was simple: let the Riccia soak up all the extra nutrients to outcompete the algae. Once the algae was under control, I'd slowly start increasing fertilization as the Riccia grew. Well, because of the snails, the algae started disappearing faster than I expected. Meanwhile, the Riccia took off, growing super fast. That's when I realized something important. If I left things as they were, my other plants could end up starving. When plants don't get the nutrition they need, they start melting, and melting plants can lead to more algae, definitely not the result I was going for. So, as the Riccia and overall plant mass grew, I began increasing both macro and micronutrients, little by little. And the results? Well, see it for yourself. This last step is just a little trick to keep those pest snails under control. Introduce a few amano shrimps. Amano shrimps don't eat the snails themselves, but they'll eat the eggs. Adding amanos to your tank is a great way to keep pest snails under control by limiting their reproduction. Over time, as algae levels drop and the snails naturally reproduce less, amanos will take care of the few eggs that are left. With less food available, the snails already in your tank will start to disappear pretty quickly. Now, let's be clear, this isn't me telling you to go out and invite a pest snail invasion into your tank. No, that's not it. Instead, it's a reminder of how valuable a good algae eating crew can be. When you understand how nature works, you can use it to your advantage, creating a balanced, thriving aquarium ecosystem. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and leave a comment below with any interesting experiences you might have had with your own aquariums.